Hi guys, my name is Danielle Robbins and I'm the 3rd through 5th grade teacher at Exodus Church. And today's story is about Paul. Now Paul, he'd been in prison for a while. In fact, he'd been in prison for about 2 years, and then he was sent to Rome and he was put back in prison for a while more, waiting to go on trial in Rome. Now all of us in COVID, it might feel a little bit like we're kind of in prison, being stuck at home. So what have you been doing with your time when you were stuck at home? I have a confession to make. I actually have a Switch, so a lot of what I've been doing is playing video games. How about you? What have you been up to? Do you think that Paul was at home playing video games when he was stuck in prison? No, not at all. Paul, when he was stuck with all that time, he was writing letters. And he wrote letters to people in the new churches all over the place. A lot of the churches Paul had started himself. And then he'd write these letters, and then the people in those churches would go and read them and learn from these letters that Paul wrote to all these people. One of the cities that Paul wrote to was the city of Colossus. And the people in the city of Colossus were called the Colossians. And so in the Bible, the book of Colossians is the letter that Paul wrote to those people who were living there. And at that time, after Paul had told them the truth, there were a bunch of fake teachers that came and started to tell a bunch of lies. And the Colossians were really confused. They didn't know what to believe. So Paul wrote them a letter to tell them, this is what you're to believe. I'm going to read part of it to you here. Colossians 1, I'm going to start in verse 15. He said, Jesus Christ is the visible image of an invisible God. So what that means is we can't see God, but we know God is there. So just like we can't see air, but if I take my balloon, I still can't see air, but I can see the way that the air is affecting the balloon. The balloon becomes my visible image of the air. That's what Jesus is for us. He is the visible image of an invisible God. So the more we learn about Jesus from the Bible, the more we're learning about God. Paul also said, He, Jesus, existed before anything was created and is supreme over all creation. For through him, God created everything in heaven and on earth. Not just earth, God also created the entire universe with Jesus. And Jesus was there and helped him create everything. I'm going to skip down a few verses. He says, everything was created through him and for him. He existed before everything else and holds all creations together. Fun fact about how it says he holds all creation together. Scientists don't actually know why galaxies stay together. Galaxies are spinning. And when things spin, they actually spin apart. So like I have these bells here. If I put them all in the middle, when I spin them, oh, there they all go. They spin apart. That's what galaxies should be doing because there's not enough gravity to hold it all together. When scientists did the math, they're like, there's not enough gravity. We don't understand. Why aren't universes pulling apart? And so they said, well, there must be something there and we can't see it, so we'll call it dark matter because it's dark to us. We don't get it. We're in the dark. But we know it's got to be there. Something has to be holding it together, but they didn't know what. Paul, 2,000 years ago, before galaxies were even discovered, Paul said that what's holding everything together is Jesus. He also said, for God in all his fullness was pleased to live in Christ, and through him God reconciled everything to himself. He made peace with everything in heaven and on earth by means of Christ's blood on the cross. So when God created everything, because he made everything, he's king of everything. But sometimes people like me, sometimes we don't always want to do things God's way. We want to do things our own way. And that's called sin. And sin separates us from God. God created everything. He created all life. So when we sin, our souls are cut off from God, cut off from life. And if our soul is cut off from life, it's dead. And God didn't want that for us. So he sent Jesus to be born to show us what God was really like, but also to die for us on the cross. And he took the punishment of sin and died the death for us. That way, he could then offer us the chance to be back alive, to have a relationship with God again. Be put back into life with God again. And that is the gospel. Paul, he went on to write in his letter, he said, this is the true gospel. If anyone tells you anything else, they're lying. And Paul knew that what he told them was true because Jesus had changed Paul's life. He was in prison, and yet he was still able to live full of joy because of how he knew Jesus. Well, Jesus doesn't just change people's life 2,000 years ago with Paul. Jesus keeps changing people's lives. And even today, Jesus still changes people's lives for the better. That's one of the very best ways that we can know that Jesus really is who he says he is, and that we can believe the Bible, because he changes us in ways that nothing else ever could. So today, this week, I hope you guys have a chance to get to know Jesus and who he really is. And I hope you guys have a fantastic week. Thank you so much, and see you later.